On August 27th in 1883, the most powerful volcanic eruption in recorded history occurs on Krakatoa, a small, uninhabited volcanic island located west of Sumatra in Indonesia. The explosion on Krakatoa was heard 3,000 miles away. Not only that, it engendered 120-foot tsunamis. It also threw 5 cubic miles of earth 50 miles into the air. Also, 36,000 people continued their return. Krakatoa exhibited its first stirrings in more than 200 years on May 20th in 1883. A German warship passing by reported a 7-mile-high cloud of ash and dust over Krakatoa. For the next 2 months, similar explosions would be witnessed by commercial liners and natives on nearby Java and Sumatra. With little to no idea of the impending catastrophe, the local inhabitants greeted the volcanic activity with festive excitement. On August 26th and 27th, it's thought that excitement literally turned to horror as Krakatoa blew itself apart. This engendered natural disasters that would be felt around the world for years to come. An enormous blast on the afternoon of August 26th destroyed the northern two-thirds of the island as it plunged into the Sunda Strait between the Java Sea and the Indian Ocean. The gushing mountain generated a series of pyroclastic flows. Pyroclastic flows are moving, molten, fluid bodies of gas, ash, and rock. Monstrous tsunamis also swept across the coastlines. 4 more eruptions beginning at 5:30 a.m. the following day proved cataclysmic. The explosions could be heard as far as 3,000 miles away, and ash was propelled to a height of 50 miles. Fine dust from the explosion drifted around our planet, engendering spectacular sunsets, but also engendering an atmospheric veil around our planet that basically blocked the sun and lowered the temperature by several degrees. The atmospheric veil that lowered the temperatures worldwide by several degrees is relatable to the same question we have today about global warming. Are we forming an atmospheric veil that traps heat?
Of the estimated 36,000 humans who continued their eternity resulting from the eruption, at least 31,000 were caused by the tsunamis created when much of the island fell into the water. The greatest of these waves measured 120 feet high and washed over nearby islands, stripping away vegetation and carrying people out to sea. Another 4,500 people were scorched from the pyroclastic flows that rolled over the sea, stretching as far as 40 miles, according to some sources. In addition to Krakatoa, which is still active, Indonesia has another 130 active volcanoes, the most of any country in the world. On August 27th in 1952, a Red Scare dominated American politics. As the presidential election of 1952 begins to heat up, so do accusations and counter-accusations concerning communism in our country. The Red Scare, the widespread belief that international communism was operating in the United States, came to dominate much of the debate between Democrats and Republicans in 1952. On August 27th in 1952, the New York Times front page contained 3 stories suggesting the impact of the Red Scare on the upcoming election. In the first story, the Republican-dominated Senate Internal Security Subcommittee released a report charging that the Radio Writers Guild was dominated by a small number of communists. The Guild, whose members were responsible for producing more than 90% of the programs on radio, had purportedly been run by a small clique of communists for at least the last 9 years. According to the subcommittee report, communist subversion of the Guild was merely one step in a larger effort to control the media of the United States, including radio, television, movies, and book publishing. The second front page story was a report that the American Legion was demanding for the 3rd year in a row that our 33rd President, Harry S. Truman, dismiss Secretary of State Dean Acheson for his lack of vigor in dealing with the communist threat. The Legion report declared that the Department of State was in desperate need of, quote, God-fearing Americans, unquote, who had the, quote, intestinal fortitude not to be political puppets, unquote. The organization demanded a quick and victorious settlement of the Korean War, even if this meant expanding the war into China. The third story provided a counter of sorts to the previous two stories. It reported a speech by Democratic nominee for president, Governor Adlai E. Stevenson, in which he strongly criticized those who use patriotism as a weapon against their political opponents. In an obvious slap at the Senate subcommittee and others, such as Senator Joseph McCarthy, Stevenson repeated the words of the writer Dr. Samuel Johnson, quote, "Patriotism is the last refuge of scoundrels," unquote. The governor claimed that it was shocking that good Americans such as Atchison and former Secretary of State General George C. Marshall would be attacked on the grounds that they were unpatriotic. The three related stories from the front page of the Times indicated just how deeply the Red Scare had penetrated American society. Accusations about communists in the film, radio, and television industries, in the Department of State, and the U.S. Army, in all walks of American life, had filled the newspapers and airwaves for years. By 1952, many Americans were convinced that communists were at work in the United States and must be rooted out and hunted down. Republicans and their allies were obviously planning to use the Red Scare to their advantage in the presidential election that year, while the Democrats had the job of proving that they hadn't become soft on communism during the administration of President Truman, who had actually become president during the continuance of eternity of our 32nd president, who was Franklin D. Roosevelt. The Republicans did emerge victorious that year, scoring a victory with our 34th president, Dwight D. Eisenhower, his victory over Adlai E. Stevenson. It was on August 27th in 1955 that the first edition of the Guinness Book of Records is published in Great Britain. It quickly proves to be a hit. Now known as the Guinness World Records Book, the annual publication features a wide range of feats completed by humans and animals. Now, the inspiration for the Guinness Book can be traced back to November 1950. It was in November of 1951 that Sir Hugh Beaver, the managing director of the Guinness Brewery that was founded in Dublin in 1759, was on a hunting trip in Ireland. After failing to shoot a golden plover, Beaver and the members of his hunting party debated whether the creature was Europe's fastest game bird, but were unable to locate a book with the answer. Thinking that patrons of Britain's pub would enjoy a record book which could be used to settle friendly disagreements, Beaver decided to have one produced. Sir Hugh Beaver decided to hire twin brothers Norris and Ross McWhirter, the founders of a London-based agency that provided facts and statistics to newspapers and advertisers. The book was intended to be given away for free in pubs to promote the Guinness brand.
However, the book became so popular, the company started selling it that fall. It became a national bestseller.
An American edition debuted in 1956 and was soon followed by editions in a number of other countries. The McWhirters traveled the globe to research and verify records.
Ross McWhirter was involved in compiling books until his continuance of attorney in 1975, engendered by a negative altercation with Irish Republican Army background. His brother Norris continued to serve as the book's editor until 1986. All historic information divulged and documented on this audio/video file can be verified on history.com.